Hey there, beautiful humans, and welcome to this Sunday night soul session live with me, LC, and my good friend who's waiting backstage, Miss Pamela Topjian of Breakthrough Hypnotherapy. I'm so grateful to be here. Tonight is going to be an amazing night because I like these times when we can talk about something that not only affects the transgender community, but affects humans everywhere. That's my goal in life is to let us all realize how alike we are. Our differences seem to be so, I don't know, lit up these days that we forget to talk about how we are similar in so many ways. And so we can relate to one another as human beings having this human experience. So tonight we're going to talk about gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia. Now, this began because I sent Pamela, my good friend, my just beautiful human friend, I sent her the topic for the week. She said, "What are your ideas for topic this week?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about body dysphoria." And she wrote it up and did a beautiful ad for it just to let you guys know what was coming up. And she said, "Oops, I put body dysmorphia." And you know what? It was divine. It was truly divine because there are so many of these things that that are run in parallel with one another. And while gender dysphoria is one thing, it's about gender, body dysmorphia happens to many people in the trans community, but it also happens to many human beings on earth right now. So we're going to talk about what is gender dysphoria, what is body dysmorphia, how they are alike. We're going to talk about how it affects us in the trans community. We're going to talk about how it affects people in the cis community and the LGBTQ plus community. We're just going to talk about some really good things. And what we hope to leave you with tonight is possibly a little bit of education, inspiration, and some motivation to learn to truly love yourself for who you are. Because let me tell you something, you're perfect. You truly are perfect. You're here. You're having an amazing human experience. And I know everything doesn't look like you would perfectly make it right now or how you would choose it to be, so to speak, but it is absolutely yours, and it's beautiful. And I want you to love that about yourself and get excited about you. So I'm going to head backstage and I get my good friend Pamela Topjian, and we're going to get to it. So if y'all are ready, we're ready. Let's go. Hey there, beautiful friend, Pamela Topjian.
Hi,
Welcome.
hi.
I'm so glad you're here, spending another Sunday night soul session with you.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Thank
Outstanding.
you.
So, what a divine little mistake you made. I love it.
I
I love
know.
it.
It turned out to be a good thing
It
because a lot of people
yes.
probably don't know the difference and they do kind of overlap sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's also a good point to remember that, I made this little ad, this little graphic, and people hire people to do these things sometimes. And the person who's doing it doesn't even know a lot of times what they just go with what's told for them. And then if
Yeah.
they make a little mistake, like I think that what happened is as I started typing in, dysphoria and dysmorphia came up and I just went with it.
Yeah.
And that can happen to anybody. And so when you're looking on the internet or you're looking at ads or you look anywhere really, do your own sort of research or at least look things up for yourself if if it doesn't look quite right. Don't always just trust, we're told all the time, don't trust the internet, of course, but
Right.
even just a little ad or just something, people would think, oh, she's, co-host on that show. She must know. Well, I didn't.
I
So,
love it. Well, I
so
love it. because
Yeah,
that's why
and
we're here. That's
yeah,
why we're
yeah,
here.
exactly, exactly.
It's an amazing thing to be in a space with two people that are seemingly different in some outwardly ways, but then at the same time, so much the same in a lot of human ways. And that's what I love
Yeah.
about our friendship. That's what I love about this platform is that, we're not the only people like us. There are many people, in the world that want to be a part of things and want to know their fellow human beings, but they're so
Mhm.
afraid to ask certain questions, or they're so
Yeah.
scared to get it wrong that they
Right.
begin to almost segregate themselves.
Right.
My good friend Eric McCoy and I, we host a show called Walk a Mile in My Shoes, and
Mhm.
tonight we did our show on cancel culture, and we talked
Mhm.
a lot about this thing that we're talking about in a way that we're almost creating a new
Yeah.
form of segregation
Absolutely.
because we are segregating ourselves from other human beings because
Mhm.
everybody is so, well, you can say this and you can't say that. And when you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
So I want us to talk about the things that maybe we don't know and aren't
Yeah.
afraid. This is a safe space, like
Yes.
people to keep your questions and comment respectful in a human, basic human rights respectful way. I'm down to answer them because I want us to become more together in human form versus apart
Yeah.
in label form. And that's
Right.
our issue. We get into labels. So I want to read, this is the definition, because when I
Ah,
began
yeah.
to look up body dysphoria, body dysmorphia is what
Right.
came up. And
See?
so
Yeah, and I think
it's,
that's what happened when I started
yeah,
doing that too, and then when I went back, I was like, "Wait a minute, that's 2 different
it's
things."
it's two different things, but I think
But
they've
they do
now
overlap, yeah.
taken over and they've overlapped. So
Mhm.
so I'm going to read this definition just to
Okay.
make sure that I get it right.
Yeah.
This is the definition. It's a dysmorphic disorder. Dysmorphia, body dysmorphia, or body dysmorphic disorder is a mental health disorder in which
Mhm.
you cannot stop thinking about one or more perceived defects or flaws in your appearance. A flaw that appears minor or can't be seen by others, but you may feel so embarrassed, ashamed, and anxious that you avoid many social situations.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about gender dysphoria,
Mhm.
this is a mismatch or a sense of disconnect between gender identity and one's assigned sex at birth. Now, this is no longer listed as a disorder,
Right.
as in the DSM 5. Gender dysphoria is considered a symptom that
Mhm.
may cause discomfort, anxiety, or depression and can contribute to an eating disorder, or dysmorphic behaviors and symptomology. The confusion is not in gender dysphoria itself, but is the result of having trouble coping and dysphoric thoughts and feelings due to experiences of transphobia, homophobia, oppression, bullying, victimization, and discrimination. So it's much different.
Yeah.
Gender body dysphoria is more pervasive than just one part of the body. Gender dysphoria
Right.
can be released or eased by changing the body part, i.e., for a trans man, say top surgery,
Right.
removal of the breast. Hey, Bradley Bagwell and Ryan, thanks so much for being here. But that's the difference, and we're talking about how close it can be.
Mhm.
Gender dysphoria can lend over into body dysmorphia.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I think that, when we talk about body dysmorphia, I see so much of this happen, unfortunately, for many young women. There's
Right.
so much body dysmorphia for females. And how much of that has to do with our expectations as a society and the
Right.
pressure that we place on females to 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 bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. I mean, hate to sing little ugly songs. Hey, Ann
Right.
Baker. But I mean, it's true. Like, we put a lot of pressure on females. And
Yeah.
there seems to be a lot of this body dysmorphia.
Dysmorphia.
Whew. Um,
I on my paper I underline that M and I underline that P for the two differences.
Everybody take a lesson right there, because I'm going to take that little lesson to
Dysmorphia and
do.
dysphoria.
See, that was a teaching lesson right there. That was a teachable
Teaching
moment.
moment.
We're all going to take that. But, you know, what I looked up so many things, about this, and
Mhm.
and we're going to get to later in the show. I've got some signs and symptoms that
Okay.
we can talk about. Or should we just point them out and talk about them as we go? Should we go there and just talk about them as we
Yeah,
go?
I mean, just let it go where it's going. I mean, I think sure, go ahead and talk about the symptoms.
All right. So these are
Yeah.
these are signs and symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder. Don't like to call things disorders, but that's what we're gonna do.
It is, yeah,
Um,
that is a disorder because
it's yeah,
it's a form of anxiety,
it truly
really.
is. It truly
Yeah.
is. And let's not say that it's mostly a female, because I know that young males can have a lot of body dysmorphia as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, less inclusive for everyone, but it is far more than feeling insecure. Everyone's has things that they dislike, and or want to change. This is normal. But when or if it becomes an obsession, that's
Mhm.
when we know that we're moving into something that's more severe. And it's
When it
easy to get
keeps you
confused.
when it keeps
Right.
you from doing things that you want
Right.
to do.
Right. I mean, and we do live in we live in the age of the selfie and social
Right.
media. We look, for everybody's highlight reel. We live in those days. And I think
Mm.
that this is becoming, and plus, let's not forget, we've got so much in the media and so many products that are about appearance,
Oh my
how to
gosh.
stay young, how to
Crazy.
look this way with makeup. I mean, all these things that we can do. And I think a lot of people don't discuss it or take it seriously. But I mean, we wait until we get to places like, bulimia or
Yeah.
anorexic or plastic surgery
Right.
obsessions. I mean, it gets to that point and then people want to talk about it, but not
Yeah.
really. And
I
so
I just saw a meme today that said it was like, "What is this BS with women can be sexy after 50? Let me just dry up like an old hag like nature intended." And it but it really speaks to,
right,
am I still supposed to hate my body? Am I still supposed to
right,
try to look younger in my 50s? For
right.
heaven's sakes,
The
like,
pressure, my
yeah,
gosh, the
that's what that
pressure.
speaks to. It's
I
funny,
mean,
but that's what it speaks to.
it's funny, but I mean, we can even talk about this for, males. Like, I hold on
Yeah.
desperately to this little hairline I got going on. I can't tell you, my wife has nothing on my hair keeping products in the bathroom, So, this goes far. This goes
Yeah.
far past, just the young ladies. But, you know,
Mhm.
it gets to be a really, I think, what are we teaching our youth,
Right.
and what are we going through as a society, in that we are absolutely obsessed with our external appearance,
Right.
when most of all of that has everything to do with our internal
Mhm.
feelings about who we are,
Right.
what we are. But we're constantly inundated with those messages from social media, from
Absolutely.
society, from TV, from so
Movies and
absolutely. And so that's like the first sign and symptoms, is a preoccupation with one or more of your body parts, and frequently honing in on flaws. And I
mhm.
wrote in there perceived, because so
Yeah.
many of the flaws that we think are flaws, if you were to ask somebody else, they don't see those things.
Right.
So often it's perceived, but it is a preoccupation. Um, And I have to say, I was really preoccupied. I can laugh about my little hairline now, but I was really preoccupied about it for the longest time because I was
Yeah.
afraid of how the world was going to see me
Mm.
as a bald man,
Yeah.
you know?
Something you didn't think about when when you
Something I did
started the
not
transition.
think
Yeah.
about, like, when I signed up. Like I did not see all that in
Yeah.
all the timeline videos I was watching and everything. Everybody just looked sexy all the way through, and I'm just like, okay, I got this. Then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, where's the bald trans guys? Like, I didn't
Right,
see some
right.
of those. It was wild. But it can be pretty severe. I remember when I was 15 years old, I went to a treatment center, and I remember sharing a room with a young lady that was suffering from anorexia, and I
Mhm.
didn't understand it, and I
Right.
asked her so many questions, and I just wanted to know because I was
Mhm.
suffering as a cutter, and I knew
Yeah.
that the two went very closely together.
They're
It was
both self-harm and
they were
controlling. Yeah.
self-harm.
Mhm.
They were so Thank you, buddy. It's the nose with me. Don't mind being bald. I gotta not mind being bald. I think I'm headed there pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um, but with her, it was, they were both so close in that is that, the cutting had everything to do with an internal self,
Yeah.
hating this body, feeling like it
Right.
was my curse. And with her, it was the same thing. And,
Mhm.
to think about, you know, that young lady never recovered from that disease
Oh,
and would
yeah.
go on to lose her life not too long
Yeah.
after. So
Yeah.
those things are very, very serious. Like, this gets to a point where it is so severe that
Mhm.
people are just absolutely, like Ryan says, we're our own worst critic,
Yeah.
negative self-talk, is
Mhm.
is so true. And so that's one of the ways that you can know that if you're going over the edge and maybe need to reach out for some help is, if there's a preoccupation with that.
Right.
um Number two is spending a lot of time thinking or worrying about your appearance. Again,
Mhm.
we got to be able to separate what's normal, worrying about your appearance, and then what becomes really obsessive.
Well, there's
um
cleanliness and just, being presentable as well as, being dressed for the workplace or, dressing for going out or for a big event like something like a wedding or something that you would
mhm.
really dress up for. So there's different levels of where you want to be socially, you know, um, dressed for the occasion
Sure.
and be, and just basic cleanliness and hygiene.
Yeah.
Beyond that is kind of, if you're always finding yourself, excessively, overly the makeup,
Yeah.
overly whatever, just to go shopping,
Right.
that's kind
Right.
of a red flag for yourself,
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
joke about it too, and it's not even, I have to put on my whole face before I go get the mail or whatever, and it's like, ha ha
Mhm.
ha, but that's not funny. That's an
No.
issue.
It's a big issue, and it often doesn't come on all at once. It's often
Right,
not that you wake up all of a sudden and you now have this dysmorphic disorder.
right.
This starts, begins small and just continues to go deeper as you
Yeah,
just continue to find one thing after another and to fix. And so much of that, you know, is truly, truly, truly about not loving the person that you see staring back to
right.
you. And as far as the trans community goes, that's something that begins to start early, and we can
Mhm.
almost get to the place where we just avoid it altogether.
Mhm.
Like, I would avoid mirrors because
Right,
I just didn't want to see what I hated so much. And so,
right.
and again, and not to say that gender dysphoria is not severe or as severe, but oftentimes gender dysphoria can be fixed as much as you can fix, the
Right.
outside of you. There's still so much work to be done
Yeah.
on the inside. And if you forget that, then that's where we get into trouble. That's where we talk about the Walts and
Mhm.
the Walt Hayers of the world, and that's where we talk about
Yeah.
people that regret transitioning because
Mhm.
they were not sure of who they were to begin with, so
Right.
they're seeking this external, change. Number three is heavily affects your self-esteem. So, this is one of those things where, yeah, we all listen to somebody say something, or we think we don't like something about ourselves, but when it heavily affects your self-esteem,
Mhm.
you know, that's when you can start to pick out the red flags. And if we start to see the red flags
Yeah.
before we get to the whole disorder,
Mhm.
how do we know to reach out for help? Like, don't be afraid to reach out and make
Right.
somebody help you,
Because I think that people will think, when they're considering reaching out for help or wondering if they're at that point, then they like I said, there's so many memes and jokes and everything, and all these products on TV for men and women, and you know, and so they don't feel like it's a problem really
Right,
that they should be seeking mental health treatment for.
right,
They don't feel like it's really, they realize they're having a problem with it, but they think, oh, I need to, stop this spending the money on these products, or I need to be able to just, or their friends will tell them, you look great, you don't need to worry about it that much or whatever. But
right,
they don't really think of it as a self-love issue, or I don't know, they don't think of it as a disorder at all, and as you said, it is considered a mental health disorder. The dysmorphia is,
hmm
like we said, the dysphoria is not anymore. That's has to do with something completely different. But
yeah,
I think that it can overlap, like we said, because if you, like you said, you were a cutter, and you
hmm
didn't want to look in the mirror, and that all has to do with, your gender not matching with the inside. So
right.
yeah.
And there have been people that have taken very drastic, gone to very drastic measures to
Hmm.
rid themselves of those parts,
Yeah.
and that's where we get past something being, something that, is uncomfortable and to something that goes into a disorder.
Yeah.
And Ryan asked a really great
Yeah. I
question. He
just saw
says,
that.
reach out to whom and where does one find support? That's a really valid and beautiful question because, oftentimes we forget when we say reach out that, that not everyone is sitting in the space to where
Hmm.
that, they know who. And so, I would often find a mental health, professional in the area,
Yeah.
whether it be just a counselor. And I know that a lot of areas now that we are becoming more aware of how important mental health is
Hmm.
to the overall wellness of a human being, there have become more programs that offer free or sliding scale
Right.
counseling. um there are support groups,
I
there
was just going
are
to say there's groups, and
yeah,
online groups even. Usually, though, with mental health, when you go to a licensed professional, you need to have a referral from your doctor. So the first place to go
that's
is your
good to
medical
know.
doctor.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but if they can't help you, don't just say I tried and that's it.
right,
You can
right.
continue to look for programs within your, you can look online for programs for, group counseling, or, just even, um, either online or even in your area, go ahead and just
hmm
do a search. But that's who you
yeah,
reach out to,
yeah,
Ryan, and anybody else. I mean, like you said, we say reach out. We say it so much in our daily lives to a lot of
yeah.
people that we forget that some people are like, what does that
Yeah,
even mean? Who am
yeah,
I
what does it
reaching out
mean
to?
and where do I
It
go
doesn't
for something
mean
like
ask
this?
my
Yeah,
friend, hey, what if
yeah,
I,
yeah,
what
for
am I going to do
sure.
about this?
For sure, because most of the time it'll be like what you were saying is, oh, it's not that bad. What are you even talking about? You're
Yeah,
beautiful, you're gorgeous. And yet,
right, right.
then you kind of feel bad for even pushing it, like
Yeah. And
maybe
then
it
you don't say
drives you back in
anything. Yeah.
and you
Yeah. And
don't
then you
say
kind of
anything.
hide it and then it gets worse. Yeah.
Exactly. And anything we keep in the dark, like
Mm.
I learned this so heavily in my addiction that anything we keep in the dark just grows,
Right.
and gets worse and worse. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we are isolated, like a lot of people are still, even in the
Mhm.
midst of where we are in this pandemic, you know, people are isolated, and sometimes
Yeah.
you don't realize how big this thing is getting
Mhm.
either until you kind of go out into the world or into the public,
Right.
or start, so it's fairly important to often do these little self check-ins and these
Right.
self checks, and because things get away from us, man, so quick. So
Yeah.
quick. Addiction's like a wildfire. These mental health issues can be like a wildfire, and you just don't
Yeah.
realize when the
And we have so
contrast is
many
not there.
we've got so many things that keep us busy. Like,
Yeah.
you can just grab your phone and start scrolling through how many different apps of social media or even news, you know, whereas, there's hardly any time to self-reflect, if you're
Yes.
not working or you're not sleeping or taking care of, something you need to do for your household or for yourself. Most people are just sitting there scrolling through their phone or
Yeah.
texting back and forth with people. You're not just sitting there self reflecting or daydreaming or just taking time for yourself to journal, just to read a
Yeah.
book or to meditate or
Yeah.
pray or whatever, anything just in within yourself, something for you that's not involved with, the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
And we
keep
don't.
ourselves busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the the agenda of all of the devices and all of the apps and everything that people are doing is to keep you in that distracted
Mhm.
place. And so, yeah, you're not going to hear a lot about what Pamela's talking about having the intention and setting aside the 5 minutes it takes to
Mhm.
just sit and ask yourself, how am I doing today? Like where am
Yeah.
I, and who am I, and how am I today? Because it's much easier to grab something and be distracted. Plus it's what everybody is doing. So,
Mhm.
I'm grateful that you spoke about that, and it's so 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 important to really do that, because without that you're not going to ever be able to gauge where exactly it is that you are in your mental health place. I mean,
Yeah.
every
Within yourself
depression.
too,
Yeah.
and not just getting reactions from people,
Yeah.
from other
Yeah.
people on social media, or your friends texting, just getting that reaction and then gauging how you look or what you wrote or what you said or your opinion, based on how other people are responding.
Yeah.
It's more important to know how it feels within you, how does
Yes.
that sit within me.
Yes. Yes, and it's great to sit in that uncomfortableness of that
Yeah.
moment. And while, you know, and while it is going to be very uncomfortable in the beginning, parts of doing this is just kind of sitting in that discomfort. It becomes necessary after a certain line around.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
reading
yeah, I
Ryan.
was reading Ryan's. Yeah, no, I got you. Well, I think psychological covered. I think psychological needs should be covered. I mean, it's part of our whole wellness as a human race. I think that those things. I think
Yeah.
we're getting to the place where we're finding out how important it is. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had like an abundance of addictions with all of the
Mhm.
with all of the opioid epidemic, and the recovery community kind of really blowing up and blowing out, and people speaking louder about this. You got to talk about the underlying things that keep this thing going. And as we
Yeah.
continue to talk about more things, as we continue to live loudly and be proud of who we are in every aspect, those things are brought to the forefront, and it makes people stand up and recognize. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful to be a part of that. As much as sometimes it's uncomfortable to lay out those things that are supposed to be hidden, you know.
Mhm.
And to go back to what you were saying, I was just thinking while you were talking about that, comparison is the absolute killer. It's the absolute enemy to authenticity.
Yeah.
And so many times when we think about reaching out, or think we're in a bad space, or going to catch it before we get real bad, we compare ourselves to somebody else and we think, oh, I don't have their problems, so
Right. Right.
I shouldn't do that. But just remember that little thing is yeah, 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 Ryan's right. But remember that little antidote, that comparison is the absolute enemy
Yeah.
to authenticity, and that's really what we're all here for.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I think you're absolutely right that psychology should be looked after primarily over physiology, because that's where it's born. That's where our physical issues are
Yeah.
born. They're born within our psychology, and so much of our emotional body, and how it's it's manifesting itself to get our attention. Our body we're connected to,
Yeah.
and when something hurts, we pay attention. But when we have a heartache, or a depression,
Hmm.
or our feelings ache, we tend to not look at that. But when it
Right.
comes out in cancer cells,
Hmm.
or spinal meningitis,
Mm.
um, mm-mm, then we have to stand up and recognize that
Yeah.
we're something screaming at us to pay attention. So here's number 4. We spend excessive time comparing yourself with others and feeling like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, that can get pretty,
Oops.
that's kind of one of those fine line things though too, because I mean, I think we do that a lot, like we were saying with the social
Yeah.
media and stuff. It's easy to do. So here's one that I thought was interesting. Number 5 is overly asking or seeking other people's
Oh, yeah.
opinions, approval, and or avoiding the conversation altogether. I think
Hmm.
that's like telling, like, I might not think about that, but it's
Yeah.
pretty true.
I can
Pretty true.
remember as a teen being a teenager girl, a female teenager, so many girls, so many teens, you know, constantly asking people, and there's the joke of, does my butt look big? How is my butt in these jeans? Or, you know, or even, as a teenager, they're worried about their body looking like a woman, and everybody just, how's my hair? How's my makeup? How's my clothes? How's my boobs? How's my butt? Just asking everybody all the time. And it just gets to a point. I know it's funny, but it's like some people
It's
are,
true.
I can remember people being very obsessive about this, and I don't,
It's true.
and you wonder where they are today.
Right.
But
Right.
another thing I wanted to bring up, we were talking about, Ryan was asking about where to reach out. A
Mm.
good place to start that you can, like, at any moment 24/7 is there's those hotlines.
Yes.
There's those text lines, there's crisis hotlines. You don't have to be suicidal. That's what people always think of, is their suicide
Yeah.
hotlines, but there's also just crisis talk lines and text lines. and
Yeah.
um and
And
that's a
we'll
good
find
place to
those too.
start.
Yeah, and we'll find those too. I mean, currently I have these on file because we've done these
Yeah.
shows. But I mean, for the trans community, that trans specific care, that trans lifeline is a great resource. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is for our trans community. It's a wonderful resource. Um, of course, the Trevor Project has their number, and that's an amazing resource. You don't have to be suicidal. If you're trans or LGBTQ plus youth, you can reach out there. And even if you just reach out to those places to get more information about
Right.
where else, get other resources,
Or to
you are
find
worth
out,
it.
to
Yeah.
say, is this a real problem? Is this something I should be seeking, going to my doctor for?
Yeah,
Or, just kind of feel that out, and they will have that information. They will say,
absolutely.
they'll ask you certain questions to sort of help you gauge how big of a problem this is. As long as you're honest, I hear so many people are, with their therapists and their counselors. They're not honest because they
Yeah.
either want to please the counselor or the therapist, or they're ashamed and
Yeah.
embarrassed. So they don't tell them the whole truth, and they kind of just give them a little bit to see how they react,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And Ryan, we will definitely post those
Yeah.
numbers and get those resources and promote them for sure.
I
Yeah.
always put them
Yeah,
on all my social
I
media,
appreciate it.
like, always, at least weekly.
Yeah, yeah,
But I know not everybody
appreciate that.
watching is on my social media, whether my business or but also, I'll, um, underneath this video, wherever it is, I can post those numbers later tonight.
Thank you so
Hmm.
much. Good evening, Brandy. It's good to see you and have you here too. And you know, I'm thinking about a lot of this stuff. It really takes me back to, you know, I know a lot of, I suffered from the dysmorphia as well as the
Sure.
dysphoria as a
Hmm.
young child, especially when I began to gain weight and I
Hmm.
became, a big child, and then I grew into, an overweight adult, and my weight got to be to a point that was deadly for me.
Yeah.
Um, you know, those things again, they just kind of fed each other while I was struggling with
Yeah.
gender dysphoria. We know we know whenever you gain weight in places that, I was not necessarily proud of and didn't want to be
Yeah.
seen. And those
You didn't
things
want to
just
accentuate. Yeah.
no, absolutely not. And
Accentuate. Yeah.
and those were very rough and hard times for me. So dealing with things like this is a very sensitive subject. I know from, drug abuse and different calcium deficiencies, I started losing
Mm.
my teeth. A lot of people
Ah.
in the addiction and recovery community, they have bad teeth or their teeth have problems and they
Right.
become that starts out as a small thing, but over
Right.
time, it gets and goes deeper to where sometimes we don't realize how deep the roots
Yeah.
on that planted seed goes. And so it's important that when you get the chance to fix those things, that again, like Pamela said, you still check in with yourself and
Mhm.
see how much of that root is still there,
Mhm.
because we know of any weed that you can think you have the entire root, but if there's just one small piece of it left, it'll come right back up. And so we want to make and take the time to really check in with ourselves and in our lives, and to do that so important. um Here's another one: struggling with anxiety and or depression that's not related to appearance. Now these are signs and symptoms of this dysmorphic
Mhm.
disorder, and I think that this actually lends itself to, it's almost like the, oh, it's in recovery. We talk about all of the hungry, tired, those things kind of lend themselves to relapse. It may not be
Mm.
the thing that causes you to relapse, but when we get into the places with our bodies
Yeah.
very tired and we're run down, we don't
Mm.
have the same ability
Right.
to fight off. And I think
It's
that's
like an
what
immune
that's
system
saying.
thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's
But it's mental
exactly what
health.
it
But
is.
yeah.
It's exactly what it is. And I think that if someone's struggling with anxiety and or depression already,
Right.
that's
Right.
not related to appearance, that makes you maybe easier to fall
Right.
into that place. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Well, congratulations, Brandy, because I know that's a big thing, to have
Yeah.
that appearance fixed, and so I'm proud of
Yeah,
you.
you see
Great
so
deal.
many people covering their mouth when they laugh or even when they
Mm-hmm.
talk,
Yeah.
because they're just embarrassed or ashamed.
Oh
And
yeah.
then, and that really can quickly spiral downward just from
Sure.
that alone. Yeah.
Yeah, it just works on your overall self-esteem,
Sure.
and then as you're in that overall self-esteem place, then here we're talking about having our mental health immune system lowered to
Right.
where now we just start getting used to isolating and being more
Right.
alone and things,
Not
and
wanting to
all of it's,
laugh.
yeah, and
That's
it's a setup.
terrible. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. It's a setup. It's a setup, to get deeper into something. So here, number 7 is obsessive rituals or habits
Mm,
around appearance.
mm,
So, my little balding creams were bordering on obsessive. I'm telling you, they were
yeah,
bordering on
yeah.
obsessive to the point that my hairdresser said, "Okay, I think you have enough product. I'm going to cut you off at this point, and I'm going to say it's not as bad as you think." And so I
Right.
had to do some really deep inner, like, work during that time, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm grateful that I did. People, I kind of think it's funny now, but at the time, I really did talk to my counselor. I have two mental
Mhm.
health professionals that I see currently,
Mhm.
and I'm not ashamed of that. I will continue to see them. I call on my friends, my good friend Pamela, when I'm having like my spirituality and different things are running rampant and running me down. I call on my friends. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I do what it takes to keep myself
Yeah.
well when I need to. And so, I talk to them, about,
Mhm.
listen, I'm losing my hair and I'm starting to feel really insecure about that. And
Yeah.
so, alopecia. Wow.
Yeah.
That is rough. That is rough. And we can talk about things like that. Like Ryan says, try having alopecia.
Right.
I that my empathy grows is so deep with that because, that's got to be hard, and it's something that you really can't do anything about. And I think that that's where a person really does get to do that deep inner work. And I hope that I hope that, Ryan, if that's you and you have alopecia, I hope that you see a beautiful soul every time you look at yourself, because that's who we are. And I
Uh,
hope that we continue to find the beauty in each other in ways that go far deeper than appearance,
yeah.
because that's where the beauty lies. I mean, just having a great appearance almost stops yourself from going deeper within, and stops other people maybe from getting to go deeper within with
Right.
you.
Right.
That's just a surface. I almost look at it as sometimes a wall, a wall
Mhm.
that kind of keeps people
It's a
at bay.
shield. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shield. So,
Mhm.
I don't know. I just think it's I
Well,
don't know.
I have to say, and this, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I was, when I was younger, I was, I never had problem with boyfriends or anything. I don't want to say I was really great looking or anything, but I wasn't bad. And now that I'm
It
getting,
wasn't bad.
now that I'm getting old, I never had a trouble in that way. Um, but now that I'm getting older, that's one of the things I like, is that I like, and people tell me that I look so much younger, but I like getting older and feeling like I can talk to men or talk to anybody and not think that they're, trying to hit on me, or that they're going to want
Mhm.
to go out with me, if, or they're going to think I'm flirting with them because I talk to them,
Yeah.
or they're going to be looking at me thinking of other things while I'm just trying to have a conversation with them. I like getting older, looking like an older woman, getting up there in age and looking like, just a more mature woman rather than, a younger woman. Where, like I said, I wasn't like model pretty or anything, but I never had any trouble. I mean, I know this must sound really like
No, I mean,
conceited
I
or
think it's
whatever, but
special to say. No, I think it's special to say
but I
because,
like this getting older
because I
because
think
of
that
that.
that's a healthy attitude. I think
Yeah.
that just for a person to say, I like this getting older
Mhm.
part is quite a secure place to be. Like, I
Yeah.
think that that's a place that most people, you know, want to get to. Like, I think
Yeah.
that that's a place, it's a place I want to get to. I want to be, and I'm close, like I'm really
Mhm.
close, but I know that I'm still dragging around some of that
Yeah.
back baggage. And I because I am still in the process of transitioning and stuff.
Right.
It's hard, but I'm learning to love something deeper than that
Well, and
for
that's what I was
myself.
just going to say. I think that also goes along with, as I age, in
Mm,
my 50s, and I'm 55 now. So in my 50s, these last 5 years, I've really grown as a person. I've
mm,
really come into my own. I've, blossomed, in so many ways that that's got to be a big part of it. It's
yeah,
not just aging and
so
feeling
true.
more like I can just be, straight with people and not worry about what they're going to think of me as far as, am I flirting just because I'm being nice,
Yeah,
or or not even want to, be, just kind to a male because I think he's going to think I'm flirting with him and stuff.
yeah,
I mean, that stuff used to happen when I was in my 20s and my 30s.
yeah. I mean,
So
I can imagine.
yeah, now I don't have to worry about that. But also a part of it is is being is being, feeling really coming into my own and
Well, yeah,
liking
yeah.
myself inside.
Well, that ends up being the energy that's put out there. That other energy of fear, I think that, like we always talk about, law of attractions at work all the time. So even when we're afraid of something like that, we're afraid of those things, then we attract those things to us. So if we're
Yeah.
afraid of that, we're actually going to attract the kind of people that are going to think that way anyway. So it's
Oh
this
yeah.
constant vicious cycle. And so you learning about that, and really coming into your own about who you are, and beginning to
Yeah.
love who you are on the
Right
inside,
on the inside. Yeah.
really creates a whole different energy, and a
Right.
stance of attraction. Um, let's see, we did obsessive rituals. Oh, here's one: expends excessive amounts of money and time fixing your flaws.
Mm.
Well, there, that covers my hair
Your
tonics.
baldness.
Yes, I almost bought. Y'all can laugh if you want. I laugh at it now. But I actually went to my wife goes to a place called Sally's Beauty Supply.
Mhm.
Never been in there in my life until, I married my wife. But I went in there and realized that they had a whole section for men losing their
Yeah.
hair. So I went to get some of that, that stuff that you kind of like pepper, I guess it is. It's like
Yeah.
pepper in your hair to where it holds onto your hair. And I remember standing there, and luckily this time, of course, I don't know if it was lucky, it was even more uncomfortable that there was a guy working in the
Mm.
Sally store. And the guy walks up to me, and I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. And he just kind of looks at me strange, and it let me know that I was obsessing about something
Yeah.
that wasn't really noticeable to anybody else. As I
Right.
was standing there in that aisle, and I was seeing myself really contemplating spending, because these things aren't cheap. I was spending
Right.
$50 a pop on this stuff. I
Right. I
was
was gonna
buying
say it's not like a one
supplements.
and done. It's a thing that you have to
No,
keep doing. Yeah.
absolutely. So, like, we're talking like $50 a bottle for whatever this tonic stuff is. And I was taking supplements. I mean, it got so ridiculous that I was asking myself, what is this all
Mm.
for, man? Like, really, what's this all for? And does it show how much you can love yourself if you do lose that hair? But when the guy was explaining all of this stuff to me and telling me what, like, if you put this stuff on your head and you sweat or it rains,
Right.
it's going to run down your face.
It's
Like,
funny that he
bro,
was he was working there and he wasn't trying to
he
sell
was.
it to you. He was saying, "Listen,
No, yeah, that's what he was
dude."
doing. He was like, man, listen, like this is gonna happen to you. Like,
Right.
are and I didn't buy it, like I didn't buy it. And I
Mhm.
realized in that moment, that maybe, okay, maybe I am obsessing about
Yeah.
something. And because I'm always down for inner growth and stuff,
Yeah.
I always want to recognize that in myself, so I don't fall in those traps. I think the
And you
moral of the
learned something
story,
that day. How
I
nice.
did.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, and I learned a lot
Yeah.
about myself. And I think the
Yeah.
moral of the whole story is that checking in with yourself
Mhm.
is vital, because it's
Yeah.
easy to fall in traps. Easy to fall in traps. And so check in with yourself. You're your own best, like, friend. You can call yourself out better. And I know that, like Ryan said,
Oops.
oops, you got a friend who wants to be in the video. Like Ryan said, we are our own worst critics at many times, but we can always also be our own, best friend, if we place it that way. So let's see. Altering life schedules due to fear or anxiety about appearance. Now, I remember not going places when I was younger, and going through different things when I was quite heavy, and I remembered that there were just some things that I wouldn't do because I was heavy. And so, I get that. I get that. It's very intrusive.
Sorry, sorry.
It's all right. Did your co-host, what did he decide to? You don't have anybody breaking in the house or anything, do you?
No, but his family's supposed to come home in about 10 minutes.
Oh, so he feels it. He feels it.
I don't
He
know.
feels a disturbance in the force.
Yes, they're
He's
getting
like, my
close.
mom's coming home.
Right, right.
Awesome, awesome. Well,
I'm pet sitting, by the way, for the audience, which I love doing.
I
Yeah,
love
and they
Ryan
know
said,
that I'm doing this here, but yeah.
Dax, Dax. I love that movie. All right, so we're at number 10. There's only 12. Intrusive thoughts and worries that never end. Big sign incentive. Number 11 is excessive mirror time or the complete avoidance, which we talked about that. Um, and number 12 is eating habits and exercise habits that are very, very, very extreme. So, those things, I think that it's good to have, really, to just to check in again, to check in with yourself and know what are these things going towards. I mean, you know yourself better than anything. But okay. Okay, I
Well,
took
that was
notes for
good
this
though.
show.
That brought up a lot of discussion with all of those for sure.
Well, it did. It did. And I think we all have these little things, and I think that it's good to do something like this. We talk about a lot again in the trans community. So a lot of times people will think this is a trans issue or something,
Mm,
and we don't take it on as our own issue, but it's more of a everybody issue at this point. And
yeah.
so I think the
And to
moral of
know
the
too
story.
that the dysphoria, the
Yeah,
gender dysphoria is not a mental disorder.
correct. Correct.
But if you, like you said, you didn't want to look in the mirror, and when you gained weight, you were looking more female
Mm-hmm.
because of where you would gain the weight,
Yep.
things like that
Yeah.
is where
Yeah.
you fall into the dysmorphia, I think,
Right.
if you are obsessing over it.
Correct. Correct. And
So
yeah.
there's like a fine line, but they do
s-
mesh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really do. And for trans people that, for transhuman that have gone through transition or are in the process of going through transition, don't don't necessarily believe that these surgeries are going to be what cures
Right.
everything, because that's where you get hopeless and in
Mhm.
desperation. And it goes the same for everybody else too. Whatever it is you're obsessing about, if you think if you just fix, it's going to fix everything,
Right.
that's where we get to be hopeless.
And
So
all these people who have all these, one surgery leads to another, leads to another,
yeah.
leads to another, and we've seen where that goes.
Yes,
So,
absolutely, absolutely, and
yeah.
it's not worth your life. I think the moral of the whole story here is, if you're in crisis, please reach out, and we are going to post some different numbers other than just suicide hotlines.
Yeah.
Pamela's going to do that later on tonight, and I
I'll be doing that
appreciate
later tonight.
you.
Yep.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
you so much for doing that. And also just, check in with yourself. Make
Yeah.
sure that you're checking in with yourself over these rituals. And if you feel like something is becoming obsessive, don't wait until you fall so deep in the trap that, it becomes dangerous for you and your
Right.
mental health. Make sure that you do what it takes, because you're worth it, and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Find someone to help you no matter what, and don't take no for an answer, or don't take we don't take your insurance, or I don't have
Right.
insurance. Please keep going to find it, because you're worth it. Everything about you is worth it.
There's always other types of therapy. There's always other kinds of groups, other therapies, other treatments, other counselors. There's always another avenue.
Yes, yes. Don't let anybody, dull what you're trying to accomplish in your life. many times we know, our vibe attracts our tribe, and sometimes we will attract that in which we fear. And so
Yeah.
let's go into it knowing that, and then just keep trying, because
Yeah.
eventually you will vibrate different. The more you
Yeah.
love yourself, the more you'll be just an amazing, beautiful 55-year-old woman like Pam. That's what I'm talking about.
Who just
Pam,
puts
Pam,
hand
Pam.
lotion and puts it over her forehead and on her neck once in a while. I don't use any products other than,
Even I
hand
asked
lotion on.
Pam what's her skin ritual. I'm like, what's the glow about? Like, what's happening? She said, just a little lotion here and a little lotion here. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me. I need a shellac lotion to fill in my gaps. I need to caulk this wrinkle and that wrinkle. Just use caulk. That's what we do. That's what we do. Well, I love you, Pam, and I'm so grateful to have spent this time.
I
I
know, I'm
want you to
so
be able
honored
to
as always.
go have your pooch time and get everything ready for his people. And I love all of you. Thank you all so much for joining us and joining in. Ryan, thanks for being such a part of the show tonight. Brandy, Bradley, Anna, all of you that are here. If I missed your name, the Chip Man. Thank you all so much for coming. And remember, like, share, subscribe, push all the buttons. You can't go wrong with those. They all help us so much. Pamela, I will talk to you some this week. Until next time, thank you so, so much. I enjoy doing this with you so much. All
Absolutely,
right,
me too.
y'all. Have a great one. Get up with me and Pam anywhere you like. Become a part of the show. TransgenderMentor.com. We love you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.